Hello everyone, Burb here. The next banner is probably the most important in Grand Live, so I wanted to make sure I did it justice, so I spent a bit of extra time making this slide presentation. So today I will be talking about two cards, the Light Hello Pal card and the Agnes Tachyon Speed card, both incredibly powerful cards that have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll be doing it in my standard mathematical analysis format. And if it gets a bit too much, I completely understand. We are going pretty deep into each one of these. I almost split the video up due to the sheer amount of stuff we have to talk about, but I decided just to keep it one reference document sheet. There is chapters in the description if you want to do one or the other and do one now and do one later. I completely understand. If you're only looking for Agnes Tachyon, feel free to skip ahead to that. Those timestamps are in the description. But today, got a lot to talk about. For Light Hello, I'll be going over why she is a necessary card in Grand Live. Basically, it's her scenario link mechanic as well as her event. After that, I'll be going over her limit breaks, try to determine what you really need, 0LB, 1LB, 2LB, 3LB, MLB, etc., and given an estimated value, I'll basically be accruing all of her events, her trainings, etc., into one singular table that says basically if you have Light Hello at this LB, this is what this card is going to give you. I'll also be comparing her to the R version of her to see if that is viable as well. For Agnes Tachyon, a little bit more traditional. Light Hello, we haven't really done a PAL card on this channel, so there's a lot of new stuff to go over. Agnes Tachyon's a little bit more traditional. It is a speed card that isn't necessarily just there for the speed output, but also because of the quirks she has with the scenario and the fact she has ridiculously high friendship training bonus, as well as her new skill point bonus. So she has values in other methods and other ways that other speed cards don't really have at the moment. And so that's going to be basically what we are looking at for Agnes Tachyon. I'll be going over the same thing I did with the CB video, her LB comparison, comparing her training versus other SSR and SR cards, and giving her an estimated value, basically what percentage of the card do you get when you have 0LB versus MLB for it, okay? After that, at that point, I think I've given you the info required to form your opinion. I highly suggest trying to form your own opinion. It comes with time. It takes practice to do so, but I'm one perspective. You probably heard other perspectives. Merge all those together, form your own opinion at that point, and then I'll be giving suggestions. So I'll be talking about the longevity a little bit. I'll be talking about whether you're going to have a pity and whether you should really be considering putting it on Light Hello or you should be putting it on Agnes Tachyon. So those will be more of the suggestions and I guess the editorializing stuff at the end. We have a lot to get through, so let's start with Light Hello. For Light Hello, this is a very, very powerful card, and if there ever was a scenario text card to have that is a quote-unquote must pull or a must use in the scenario, at least this one is actually really, really stabilizing and fun to use because she has a great gold skill, she has a ton of energy, she has a lot of mood ups, and she's a PAL card, so it means that you're basically going to see your other chain events a lot more. There's a lot of positives to this card that the previous two PAL cards didn't really have as much. Of course, Tasna, really great for energy, good for stats, but didn't have a very good gold skill outside of frontrunners, but we couldn't really do it at that time because we didn't really have that many skill points. Rico had the problem of, even though she gave a ton of stamina and guts, she really did not give you much energy at all. This one gives an incredible amount of energy, and that is her strength. She has See You Later, which is PTO gold, which is an incredibly good gold skill, and just those two things alone make her rather comfortable to play. As a disclaimer before we begin, we have not done a PAL card on this channel, and they are very complicated because they follow different rules. I think I may have underreported it slightly, but I don't think it's more than 10%, so I think that for the purpose of comparison, this should be perfectly fine to do. So I've done my best. I have done my best to state my assumptions that I'm making as I'm going through, but do note that it could be off by about 10%, but I don't think that will matter as much. These estimates are basically to get into the realm of reasonableness, okay? She's a scenario text card, and the reason that is she basically has a mechanic that's heavily ingrained with the actual Grand Live scenario. I haven't gone over Grand Live, but the long and short of it is that you'll be collecting these song pieces to eventually go and buy lessons and songs that give you permanent buffs for the rest of the career. This is critical in order to actually reach the levels required to get your stats and your skill points high enough to actually be competitive. This is a required mechanic, and she facilitates it with her event. Her scenario link is not only the fact she is a scenario link character that gives more star pieces on training, but also because she has an event much like the group card Throne or like any of the other PAL cards, where she gives you 20 tokens of your least own song token type. So know that this, if there is a finite resource and you are able to acquire something of your least own type, it is much, much higher value than any of the other options that you have, let's say. If something's very hard to acquire, having even a little bit of it is very, very powerful. And having 20 is actually above rate for training anyways. If it's anything like the Throne or like Rico was, it is kind of in between the realm of 40 to 50% chance that this event procs, but whenever you train with her, she has a chance of actually procking this event and giving you 20 tokens. Think of it this way. I have an allegory. The average Umamusume player needs 5 things to survive: food, water, shelter, their phone, and internet, because how else are you going to be able to play Umamusume? Imagine you have a decision. You're off bushcrafting in the wilderness and you get lost. And you have 2 options. You can either go and get food and shelter, or you can go and get your phone and have an internet connection. What do you choose? While that decision might be rather difficult, what you may notice with the big red text is neither of these are offering water. And that's how Grand Live really is that the speed and whip button can really only generate 4 of the 5 different types of song pieces. Just like this doesn't give the option of water, you may be able to press these red buttons as much as you want, but you will still die of thirst. What Light Hello does is she's going to be able to give you that and supplement the fact that you can get a lot of food, a lot of shelter, a lot of phone, a lot of internet, and she'll give you the river to give you the amount of water that you need. That is why this is so important. It goes for whatever one that you seem to be lacking at the time, and that is why it is so, so valuable. She gives you the song piece that you need the most, and that is much, much higher value than anything else in the current game, even if you were to run a stamina card to be able to grab the water pieces, or a guts card to run those water pieces as well, basically. We'll talk about more in Grand Live, but just know this is just a mechanic that is practically required, in my opinion, after looking at it and watching other people run the runs. So this is why she's a scenario text character. Okay? For her Limberback break comparison, when you're looking at this, it's a lot like Rico. Her training effectiveness increases from 0 to 10 at 2LB and then caps out, and the rest of her stats basically slowly increase over time. There's nothing that's too impressive. It's just all these little things that are increasing: the event effectiveness, the failure protection, the event recovery, the energy cost decrease, all this stuff, the initial stats, it just slowly adds up over time. And that's kind of the key with this card, is whatever LB that you get, the easier your run's going to be, because you get slightly more energy, you get slightly more stats, you get a little bit more training effectiveness. There's nothing that's like jumping out at you about this card, like let's say a power bonus or a speed bonus that you would get on like a wit card or a speed card that almost like adds an additional 20 to 25% of its trainings and is critical. There's nothing on this card. Now, the unique effect is kind of very, very important. It says during friendship training, which are the training types you're going to be taking the entirety of Grand Live, you get a bonus 30% energy cost reduction, which is massive. That's basically think of it like wit training, wit recovery, like +6, right? Wit recovery +6, but on every training except for wit, that is a friendship. That's very, very important. We'll get back to that when we have the R Light Hello card, and we'll talk about that. For that, otherwise, it's just initial speed and initial guts in 3LB Plus is her special. So really what we're looking at is just the slow increase of event recovery and event effectiveness, because PALs are a little bit weird when it comes to training. We're going to go and use a table to accrue all of our stats as we're moving along. I think this will be very valuable. If you're really just looking for the table, just come back after I go through all the math of each one, when I go and pop up a table that looks like this, okay? So basically, we're adding our initial stats that we have. MLB gets 30-30 for speed guts, 0B gets 0 speed, and 25 guts. So just a nice little starting point for our various different LBs. For her events, basically at the start, her fixed events on your first training, you get 20 pieces of your least type, as well as a mood up, of course, and a bunch of guts and a little bit of guts and SP. But the big thing is that gives you some bond, and that additional bond basically makes it a lot easier for you to go and get the start date. Basically what happens is once you get 40-ish or more, it can technically start early, but it's a lower rate. You have a chance every single turn for her to go and choose to run her start date event. Once that happens, you unlock dating, and it's just like any other PAL card. If you've never run Rico, basically you have the choice to go through a chain event. It's not like a base card where the chain events go and take up slots. Now you just press the button, you use a turn, and you get these rewards. That's basically what it is. And these rewards have a ton of energy. That is their sort of primary reason to do so, is basically you're replacing your rest button. And in Grand Live, you will be pressing the rest button, but it'll be much less because your first few rests are probably going to be your dates with Light Hello, and you'll probably get them rather early because you're really, really trying to force those friendships to start friendship training as early as possible. Okay, so think of this. Even number 3 has 80 total energy at MLB. Of course, we'll talk about it beforehand, but most of the stuff is practically just energy, and it's energy on command. The last event is going to give you See You Later, which is playtimes over maximum. It's technically an Agemasen, but at worst you get 1 level of See You Later instead. It could just be a flip because honestly it doesn't have a stat attached to it, so I bet you it's just a straight flip, but other than that, it's just energy. This is just a rest button replacement kind of thing. Otherwise, besides the two fixed events, there is an event if you go and get her date unlocked before the start of Classic Year, which is probably going to be required because if she doesn't appear before Classic Year starts, you're pretty cooked, honestly, because you've already gotten through a Grand Live and you haven't been getting any of the Grand Live pieces. So it's probably a reset anyways, so you're probably just getting a choice of more energy or a Frontrunner Savvy and Pace Racer Savvy. So your Frontrunner players, you get a free green, and those Ricky players, you basically get a free Frontrunner green if you decide to build her Frontrunner at the end of career, just like anything else. Any other pal card, any other group card, you get some of her 2 stats, Speed Guts, as well as some SP at the very end, and you get a little bit more if you max out her bond, which you should be because all of her dates actually increase her bond by roughly 5 to 7 depending on the events. Okay, otherwise there is a chance that you get a random mood up option. There's 7 mood ups on this card. It's actually kind of insane, so really, really nice to stabilize your run. This is what's important, and this is what we need to start analyzing with these PAL cards. Without any bonuses or anything, her events give you 190 energy, 70 guts, and 40 speed, at least the ones that are required and are not random events, okay? So we're going to take out the random events. This is just what you get by pressing the date button 5 times, as well as going and successfully having the start and end of career stuff. So what you do with this is you just multiply it with the energy recovery and event effectiveness. The energy is multiplied by the energy recovery. The event effectiveness is multiplied by the stats. So this 70 guts is multiplied by that 25 at 0 LB for a grand total of 87 guts, because it's 70 times 1.25 for 87. And then the event recovery at that point for 0 LB is 190 times 1.4, which would give you 266. And as you can see, you basically slowly progress your stats, slowly progress your guts as well, sorry. And then your energy actually, like, it doesn't look like that much, but it's basically a slow increase of nice to haves. Over the course of a run, you're looking at about 9 to 10 energy per LB just in your events. And that is, of course, on command, so you can decide to run it early or not, but most times you're going to be going and utilizing this energy, and it may cause you to go and grab an extra wit tap or grab an extra speed tap over time. Basically, you get a half of a training per limit break just in her events itself. So if we go and we add it to the actual initial stats, we're going to be, again, accruing everything. We now have an energy column here. We're going to add the guts before. We see we just added the initial guts and the initial speed to it. And what we have is basically MLB is at 82 speed, whereas regular is 50. The guts is basically the same no matter where you're at the moment. And then the energy goes, and of course, is the new column. So the race bonus does have an effect. We calculated back in the really old video of why I'm pulling on Nice Nature, the original card review. Mostly it was used to justify my pullings, but we found that, like, just in the scenario events and stuff, it'll generally give you 5 race bonus, generally gives you 20 stats and about 40-ish SP, so each limit break gives you basically another 5 stats and 8 skill points, but honestly, it's not too much of a difference. Over the course of the run, that's 8 total skill points. It's just another nice to have. Specialty priority. For PAL cards, there is none, but in fact, a lot of people don't know this, but they don't follow the same rules as regular cards, and I didn't realize this ever either. She follows NPC logic, and NPC logic isn't the standard 100 over 550 plus specialty priority to numerator denominator. She follows NPC logic, which says that they go on vacation more. So basically, they have an 80% chance to train and a 16% chance of training on each one of them. So she just has a flat 16% chance to train on any of the 5 separate trainings. It's not the 18.1, so it's a lower percent chance to actually train. And this goes for all PAL cards, and I want to say it's group cards, but I don't exactly know. I bet you if I read Japanese, I would know 100%, but this is the number that we have to use for specialty priority. Basically, when going and calculating her training value, we have to figure out how many taps she's actually going to be on a useful training. In all scenarios, there currently is 75 training taps, 3 years of 24, basically 12 months times 2, times 3 years, of course, and then 3 for the 3 various, what's it called? Climax scenario. Well, that's the previous one. URA finale. So the 3 turns in URA finale plus the 72 that are in the base 3 years. Now, on average, I think your career has between 8 and 10. We're going to go with 8 for career to get that number of trainings, and then we're going to subtract 12 from that number to have a grand total of 55 training, because at the start of the run, the entire pre-debut, let's say, you're going to be pressing your Light Hello. You're going to have 5 date events. You're going to be wanting to press things without Light Hello at the start. That's not going to have training, and before you start getting her actual bond up and your other cards up a little bit, this is the big thing, is that we're going to be talking about her friendship trainings. It's going to take you between 7 turns plus her dates, let's say, to get everyone's friendship bonus at a level where you start having like consistent friendship. And I know it's a little bit of feels crafty, but there has to be a line in the sand drawn, and I think that this is a decent line. Through tests, just empirically, that people that guy's been doing, the final number shown here later is going to be pretty close to what I have shown as well. So if we go and multiply that by her specialty priority, basically her NPC specialty priority rate, we're going to get 8.8 speed trainings because she chooses each one 16% of the time, times 55. So we have 8.8 speed trainings. And also, we need to make sure that there's someone else on the training, because we need one of our speed cards to go there with her in order to actually have a friendship training with her for a lot of the stuff that this card gives, okay? So the odds of that is basically the everything except the failure chance. The failure chance is all 3 speed cards have gone away. With no specialty priority, it's an 18.1% chance for any speed card to go to speed. And for 3 of those, you just multiply that by itself 3 times, or you cube it for a 45% chance. But if we want to go and be a little more accurate, we can just say, well, what's most likely most people are going to use? Some level of Kiddison and Agnes Tachyon and Marzensky Summer speed. And if you do the specialty priority for these cards, you're going to get about 62% of the time you're going to have at least one of them on speed, which is really powerful. It's really why Tachyon and Kiddison are so powerful, because of their high specialty priority in this scenario. But I think we go and need kind of split the difference, because not everyone's going to have those cards. People are going to have Sweep Tosho. People are going to want to use like Fuku. I think 57% is a good estimate between the 45 of not having any specialty priority and the 62 of having like ideal specialty priority of like the highest levels of whale deck. So we'll do 57%. It is technically arbitrary, but it will go and work for our purposes. So we have 57% of the time times the 16% that she's actually on it. We have roughly 9.7% of the time where we have a great Light Hello tap. We will have great taps otherwise, so do not worry. It's not only 10% of stuff you're going to have bad, like you're going to have bad 91% of the time, but Light Hello just won't be effective 90% of the time. That's fine, because that's generally how support cards work, is they go to training sometimes and then they don't go to training other times. And 9.7% isn't much lower than the rest of it, but it is lower than normal because of NPC logic, basically. So if you want a little bit of bonus, if we do the same thing with 2 wit cards, we find that basically it's a 7.22%. It's 45% using stuff like Fine Motion or Nice Nature, as well as Mr. CB as well. So we can estimate 5.3 friendship taps, 4 friendship whip taps, and then I have 8.3 non-friendship taps, no matter what. It's just wit or it's speed. And this adds up to about 18-ish taps. And what I found with JJ and them in the Uma.Guide Discord, that's roughly around where you're going to be. The higher rolls, you're going to have like 22 Light Hello taps, and the low rolls, you're going to have like 16. 18 is roughly where it is, and that's time to build up friendship. That's time to friendship train with them. and so on and so forth. So I do believe that this is a relatively good estimate in this regard. So 17.6 relevant taps with 4 wit friendships, 6.2 wit non-friendships because you're generally going to want to press the wit button more, 2.1 speed non-friendships with Light Hello, and 5.3 speed friendships. Note as well, in the run-up of not like all these non-friendship speeds, they really are technically like non-friendship all stuff, right? Realistically, it doesn't really matter if it's speed or if it's stamina or if it's power, you're going to be getting stats, and the math is the same because it's just a separate, stat, but it's a lot of complexity to add. I think that just speed and wit is perfectly fine. That's what you're going to be pressing like 80 to 85% of the time anyways, but realistically, if it's a power or a stamina tap and there's Light Hello on it, the odds of it being a good Light Hello tap is probably still just about the same, if not slightly lower, but realistically, over time, you're probably hitting this in a run. That's my modeled estimate for it. This is the other assumption that's a little tough. When you friendship with wit friendship, because there's so many cards in the game, you have to multiply it by all the different friendship bonus that you're going to be on, whether it's a double or a triple, like for speed, etc. It's just so difficult to model. I'm adding a flat modifier because I've already talked about Light Hello so much already. This is relatively fine. You think like a fine motion tap, right? If you have fine motion and Light Hello, you multiply your training effectiveness of 15 for fine motion plus our 35%, like multiply that by the 35% of friendship bonus plus the 10% or 5% that Light Hello will give, and you get roughly like 95% for fine motion, and then a non-fine motion tap's going to be like 60%, so this I think is reasonable. The speed friendships is just triple. You have triple logic 7% of the time, double logic like 14%, and then single logic later. It's really complicated. This is the one thing I'll say trust me on. It's just, these I think are rather reasonable bonuses to TEF and MEF and friendship bonus over the course of time. But the whole purpose of this is threefold, basically. Try to find the training effectiveness and what it gives. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. Oh, sorry. I knew that this was going to be pretty long. So training effectiveness for wit, you do the standard like training tap strength formula of you multiply it by the TEF, which was our multiplier. Like we combined all the TEF, MEF, and friendships of other cards into one big multiplier. We multiply it by the 8 total wit taps. Sorry, 8 total wit that we're gaining from it from a level 3 wit, right? A level 3 wit. Sorry, this is speed. These are for speed, but that's fine. This is a level 3 wit tap. And then we multiply it by 5.3 times, and we find it's about 2.3 wit per wit tap that the 5% training effectiveness specifically on this card only is giving us. The same thing that happens with the secondary stat. It's technically over, but I think I fixed it here. It's actually supposed to be 6 and 2, but I think I fixed it here. So these are the right numbers, just the wrong equation, because I was doing the same thing for speed and I copied it over. But speed is 8.4 for base speed and power. Yes, the actual levels will increase this, but as a base, every single speed tap that she does, that is not actually a friendship training, gives a bonus 1 speed and a 0.55 power, just because of the 5% training effectiveness. The same thing for speed friendship. You have to do add 1.25 for 2.25, and the wit friendship is the same as well. And you get these numbers. You add them up, and basically base without any other considerations, you basically get over the course of a run additional 5 wit, 9 speed, and 3 power. And I know that seems low. This is where I said it was slightly underreported because this doesn't take into account multi-trainings, and it doesn't take into account increases in actual like training effectiveness level, which probably is the big one. So you could probably consider doubling this, and it's about what it would actually be. So about 9 wit, 17 speed, and about 6 power bonus per 5 training effectiveness. So for the different LBs, again, 0, 1, 2 LB is what happens. And this is where we add the power, wit, and speed to the table we had prior, and it's starting to go and pull away a little bit. The big one is energy reduction. This is honestly where most of her value comes about. Again, the unique effect is during friendship training, she has 30% reduction. We take our same modeling as before for the 17.6 relevant taps. Obviously, if it's not a friendship training, it doesn't count, and you get only the 5% to 10% energy cost reduction. And if it's a wit tap, there is no energy cost reduction, so it doesn't count as all. So basically you get the 30% modifier bonus on the speed, friendship or I guess, and then the base value on the speed slash not wit category there at that point. So for the 7.4 relevant taps of these two categories, basically, we find that over the course of a run, this passive plus the energy cost reduction that Light Hello gives you approximately 41-ish energy just for the speed friendships, as well as about 4 bonus energy for the non-friendship bonus trainings, about 1 per training, if that makes sense, which kind of makes sense. It's kind of the similar thing that Fuku does in that respect. Over the course of time, your limit break does actually matter. Every single tap up to 3 LB has an increase in energy cost reduction, and while it's not that much over the course of run, you're talking a matter of about 10 energy from 0 LB to 3 LB over time. So if we go and we add that to our energy calculations, we see that basically no matter what, at 0 LB, you're getting like 300 energy over the course of a run for the SSR. It's really, really good, but you do get a bonus 50 energy for MLBing this card, which is a very nice to have, because that is about 2 extra bonus trainings. Failure protection, very hard to model. Realistically, the only thing this is really doing is giving you some chances for wit, or if you're gambling a lot for speed and stuff, it might go and affect you getting a better training that you would otherwise do not, but everything besides wit basically is an opportunity cost of using the energy. So it is essentially the same role. It gives you a little bit more selection. There is value here. I did not model it due to time, but just know that this probably gives you a bonus amount of wit taps that you wouldn't otherwise have, because the failure protection is actually quite a lot. It's 30% of base value. So if you're 20%, it would be about 15% for 25%, right? So 25% failure protection reduces it by 5% if there's 20%. So it's of total, but just don't fail, right? Initial friendship gauge. Do note that the threshold is on 26, so 1 LB removes 1 tap. Also very important that that 1 tap, this double tap part right here, so these 2 taps, the actual base first training gives you +7 instead of +5 bond, which means your first tap on her will activate her as long as you have 1 LB plus, which is a very nice to have, because you don't have to go around chasing her to try to start her chain event. You just tap her once and that's it. You have Light Hello active, and she's currently rolling on doing her starting event. So really nice to have at 1 LB plus in that initial friendship gauge. Let's talk about the R real quick. My personal opinion, I think a 0 LB copy is practically required for SSR. Not to say that you can't run Grand Live with just the MLB R version, but this is not a Rico situation. There's 2 big things that this card doesn't have. First of all, the passive. The passive is the energy cost reduction. That energy cost reduction, like I said, is about 44 energy at MLB, but realistically, it's still 40 energy at 0 LB. If you have absolutely nothing else, that energy is going to be massive because it is on command due to her events, and it is going to have a lot of value and cause you to take less wit taps because you're struggling to get your energy more often. Energy is so powerful in Grand Live because it just kind of directly translates into more trainings, which is more friendships, which means more song tokens, which means more scenario mechanics, which then loops around and basically snowballs in the game and lets you go and get more permanent buffs, which boost your trainings over and over again. You see how that works? Every little bit of advantage that you can get in Grand Live is a lot, and this R card does not have this massive energy cost reduction for doing the friendship training. It doesn't have that win more thing that the other one has. Remember, it's a reminder, this is what the base Light Hello has. You would be sacrificing training effectiveness at 0 LB, but you would be getting that energy cost reduction. So this R version has basically all the bad, not necessarily useful things of the Light Hello card. You do get the training effectiveness of a 1 LB, you get the max race bonus and fan bonus, the energy cost reduction base, but you lose the passive. You basically lose all the event recovery and event effectiveness, the failure proc, everything that the SSR card does, and most importantly, you lose the gold version of Playtime's Over. This is not like Rushing Gale, where it was just kind of a nice to have, and you could go and do R Rico. Playtime's Over is the most consistent skill basically in the game. It's someone is following you, and someone's going to follow you at some point, and on long track, someone's going to follow you twice because this thing has a cooldown. This is like a ridiculously good skill that you're going to want on pretty much every character, and it's a really good point sink on most of them as well. So losing this is basically losing a lot of your ceiling, and that is why I think you should be running a 0 LB copy of Light Hello SSR before an R copy, and that may be a hot take for some, but I don't value this training effectiveness. I feel like I can always go and high roll a run to get slightly better stats, but the energy that I'm losing the energy that I'm losing over the course of time, and this gold skill is going to be worth any number of basically stats that are like, unless it's like 100, but man, this is like, we're talking like this 5 tef being, even if you double this, it's like what, 40 stats versus energy on command plus see you later plus other stuff. I just don't see how this card compares at all even to the 0LB copy. But if that's all you have, do note she still has her scenario mechanic. You can still run with her, but you probably should be borrowing Light Hello at that point. It's hard to say because this is just not really a free-to-play friendly thing to say, but the SSR version just has so many advantages over the R version, even at lower limit break. That's all I wanted to say. I've been yapping about it probably a little too much. Other than that, this card gives you some okay skills. The big one, of course, is See You Later on the date event 5. Otherwise, Maverick, you never take this. This is how you kill the event off, and you need the events. It's 300 energy. Otherwise, if you're a front runner, you get front runner savvy for free, and if you're a pace chaser, you get a pace chaser savvy for free. Other than that, doesn't really give you many skills. So in conclusion, Light Hello, first of the 2 cards we're talking about. This is a scenario required card due to her scenario link mechanic. If it's all you have, run R Light Hello, but SSR even at level 0 is better than base Light Hello. And from everyone I've talked to, they agree as well. And that is my personal take on it. It's a very good card. It gives you a ton of energy no matter what you do. Yes, the training effectiveness is very nice at 2LB, but there's no real big break point on this card. It's just slightly better stats, slightly more energy. It gives you about a half training to a full training per run per limit break, every single increase. So every single LB that you get of this card will have value, but there's no specific breakpoint that you should be really aiming for, in my opinion, except perhaps as people are saying 2LB for the training effectiveness. But even then, you can go and just get that from other really good cards in your deck if you're at there. But for a new player, again, that training effectiveness is really where you base your stuff around, so it is more important. So that's my Light Hello talk. You yapped about this card enough, let's be honest. Let's talk about Agnes Tachyon speed. Let me grab a drink real quick. Hey, I did say that it would be long. Welcome back if you're just using the timestamps, but let's talk about Agnes Tachyon speed. This is probably one of the best speed cards that's been released so far. This is technically a pace chaser card, but honestly, with its skill point bonus, it's really, really good either way. And with the scenario link, we'll be using it in Grand Live, even at its lower limit breaks. So the scenario link mechanic that happens on all scenario link cards is basically a +1 base to the actual number of start or song tokens that's generated. So instead of 11, due to some training effectiveness and stuff, it's 13. But basically, wherever this card goes, whatever start song piece it actually is giving you, it gives you 1 bonus prior to all the friendship bonus calculations that you would normally do and all the other stuff that affects it. I don't know exactly which affects it right now, but just know that you will be getting more song pieces the more scenario link cards that are on it as a bonus. Okay, the thing is that with this card, just for the scenario link bonus, this also happens on Agnes Tachyon Wit as well as other cards in the game. It's just speed cards are harder to come by, especially those with scenario link. There's a lot of really good Wit cards in the game. There's a few really good speed cards in the game, and the fact that this is a speed card that is very good that also is scenario link is kind of what is putting it above all the competition in Grand Live. Okay, so this is not necessarily a must have. This is if you have it, it's really nice, and you're going to have a significant advantage over the rest of the field with this card. For the LB comparison, there's a few things to note. This does have traditional breakpoints, unlike Light Hello. The speed bonus at level 1, at 1 LB rather, is very powerful. We've talked about speed bonus before and how it's probably the most important status bonuses because it adds to the base itself. And at 3 LB, it does give SP bonus, which is going to be, over time, the most important stat in the game. So she comes with basically the most important stat of today and of the future right now. But we'll go over each one of these basically in sequence. Her unique effect is kind of weird, but at 100 bond, or when you see the Lord Max on her bond, she gains a bonus 20% friendship bonus. So realistically, her friendship bonus increases at 18 and goes all the way up to 24. So it's not really this. It's 15 to 20, but due to the multiplicative nature of unique effects, basically this 20 is actually multiplying the other 20, and 20 times 20 is really 44, right? When it's there, whatever, when you actually do all the math that I'm not going to do at this point because there's so much stuff to talk about. So There's multiplicative nature. This is the same thing that happens with Kiddos in Black and her specialty priority. It has increased values. Sorry about that. I think it's actually 15 to 20 for friendship bonus. But other than that, very powerful card. We'll be talking about it. Her very high specialty priority is also something that increased slowly over time that gives her an incredible amount of value. But we'll talk about a lot of this stuff. First of all, most important thing about pretty much any card in Grand Live right now is going to be specialty priority. And the reason is that snowball effect I was talking about in the Light Hello card. So basically, if you are able to have cards on good trainings that are friendship bonusing over time, it means you get more friendship trainings, which means you get more tokens, which means you can buy more things. And then when you buy more songs, you get more permanent buffs and you snowball from there. So being able to do that quite high is very powerful, and Agnes Tachyon slowly gets better in that regard over time, having a bonus 7, especially priority every single level. What this kind of translates to is that at 0 LB, you'll be on average over 55 training turns. You can see the specialty priority equation here. 100 plus specialty priority over 550 plus specialty priority is what it is for every single training: speed, power, wit, stamina, guts. And Umada Guy does it nicely for you here, but you can just take 150 for a 50 over 600 and get 25%, and it's 28% for 80, etc., etc. As we're going along, 55 training turns, we find the expected value. We have expected value of about 13.75 trainings. It's not exactly what it is, but for the purpose of what we need, it's what we are basically testing right now. So 13.75 trainings and then 15.71 trainings over the course of time for 80. Now, I believe it's a little bit higher if we actually do the full binomial problem, but realistically, what you really should be considering is you would get about roughly a half extra time on speed per run per limit break. It's almost like Cygames is designing these cards to slowly, progressively get better over time without going anything too crazy. But this matters quite a bit because over the course of time, having 2 to 3 extra friendship trainings is actually like 60 song pieces, which is like it's like 2 lessons, right? I believe is actually what the conversion is. I could be wrong on that. It could be 2 lessons. I think it's an entire song's worth. And so this is actually quite powerful on its own when combined with other speed cards that are basically high, especially priority as well. After that, let's talk about our per tap strength. At 100 bond at speed level 3, that's what we're going to talk about. I like to go and do a level 3 training because it bridges the gap between summer trainings and non-summer trainings, and when you're building it up and when you're not building it up. Basically, the equation for per tap or per training is your base training plus your stat bonus, in this case speed bonus, multiplied or power bonus if we're doing our power, but per training, base training plus the stat bonus, multiply everything by your UMA's growth rate bonus that we nix right now because it depends on whatever your UMA is, multiplied by the mood, which is 1 plus the mood bonus, which will be 20% locked to great mood, mostly because we have a PAL card, times the mood effect. So something like 30% bonus mood effect would give us 1.26 modifier instead of a 1.2. Luckily, she doesn't have any mood this time. We multiply it by the training effectiveness, by the friendship bonus, and then a thing called participant count bonus, which is basically there is something on this training, therefore we get a 5% bonus multiplicative addition to it. If there's multiple cards plus NPCs, this increases. We generally just keep the first one. So we're going to be using this for all the LBs. So it's rather useful, even if it's not 100% representative. So we take a base 0 LB copy, which does not have the actual speed bonus, which is really what sucks about it. 10 times 1.2 times 1.05 times the 38% friendship training bonus because we are at max bond, multiplied by 1.05, we get 18.25 speed. Same thing for power, it's roughly about half, but once we get 1 LB, you can see the difference is actually a lot. It's additional 2 full speed just from this one, just because of all the various different modifiers that are attached to this just one speed bonus increase. The friendship bonus does increase a little bit, but most of this increase is caused by the speed bonus. That's why speed bonus is so powerful. The power bonus, on the other hand, because there isn't actually any bonus and it's just a little bit extra training effectiveness, or rather friendship bonus in that case, it doesn't really increase the power very much after that. At 3LB, do note that the friendship bonus is kind of increasing to its maximum, and it's actually somewhat significant. So we can see we do get a little bit over a half of a speed at that point, but it's nothing compared to the +2 speed that 1LB does give us. Also note that the power does increase by a somewhat significant amount as well over the course of 1 to 3LB. For MLB, It's exactly the same. There's no friendship bonus increase. There is no speed bonus increase. There is no training effectiveness. And there's no mood effectiveness, which means all the training stats are exactly the same between 3LB and MLB. It maxes out at 3LB for training stats only. Okay, training stats only. Now, if we do take away the passive and we're at 80 bond and a friendship, do note that basically everything gets nerfed by quite a margin, and basically because everything is lower absolute value, even though the actual absolute increase is roughly the same, the percentage increase is going to change lightly. And if we go and take the output to figure out what percentage of stat output of the card, which is I think the useful metric for training cards, basically a 0 LB copy isn't good enough. It's about 90% of a card to 85. It's not like horrible, but you're really starting to look for the 95 percentile of SSR cards in order to get them at a level where you want to actually use them. So the 1 LB copy, if it's not a friendship training, it's giving you 100% of everything you need because it's only friendship bonus increase. If it is a friendship training, you're still getting about 96% of the stat output, and of course 2LB is 98, and then at 3LB you're just maxed out at that point. Its stats max out at 3LB, but there's a lot more to this card than just the stats itself. First of all, the initial friendship gauge. This is important in Grand Live because one less tap could mean one whole extra friendship bonus, which causes the cascade that I talked about before, or the snowball effect. Basically, we can take 100, which is the maximum, because we are trying to get max because of the passive. We subtract 7 per training, and we subtract 5 per event equals our initial friendship. So we can plug in I here. We go and do a bit of algebra and like move around all the terms. We find that basically 7 times the number of trainings required is equal to 85 in this case, because we're talking about 15 initial friendship gauge. 12.14 trainings equals T. That's the number of trainings required to get it to absolute maximum. And if we are going at MLB for the 20, basically this makes it 80 required. It's 11.42, so it's one less training. Where the breakpoint actually is at that 1LB mark, which would be at 84. It would be exactly 12 trainings. All this to say, what you should be taking in out of this is the initial friendship, each LB up to MLB, which doesn't really give anything, has a reason for it. 1LB from 0LB to 1LB gives you 1 less training, so for the maximum only. So the maximum passive, it will give you 1 extra training. At 2LB, it'll give you 1 extra training at 80, which is less relevant than the maximum, but it means you have 1 additional chance of getting a friendship training. At 3LB, it means that not only do you have an additional training subtracted from the requirement, you also are able to use any event whatsoever, whether it's the first chain event, whether it's a random event. If any event of Agnes Tachyon procs, you get another threshold crossed in order to get to that bond level 80 and bond level 100. So an event can replace a singular training, which doesn't happen and doesn't require time, right? Doesn't require different taps in your run. At MLB, nothing really increases. So 3LB is kind of where the initial friendship, even though there is it doesn't increase at all. So there's nothing increasing for the MLB. Oh boy. All right, hints. So the hint frequency increase, do note that it does do stuff. Over the course of time, expected value is about a tenth, about 1 out of every 5 runs or so. It's a little bit more than 0.14, depending on the number of taps that you tap on Agnes Tachyon. If you care about her hints, which are mostly Page Chaser hints, I don't think I put it on the slideshow, unfortunately. I may go and look at the game tour afterwards and add it in here, but if you care about the hints, do note that the MLB does make it so that it gives 2 taps to naturally remove them from the pool instead of 3, which means you will see more of her hints. Otherwise, her hint frequency roughly attributes to about 0.5% every single time she is training to have a chance of going along and giving you a hint. Now, whether she's on a relevant training or not is where this EV comes in. We find it's not really that important and impressive, but it's just a nice to have at that point. Future burp here, I just wanted to make sure I added these skills because they are very relevant for Pace Chasers, with the Pace Chaser corners and straights, and of course Unstoppable being a brand new 2.4 second mid-race skill for Pace Chasers. That's quite good. Also chances of head-on as well for the Pace Chasers. For the mediums as well, you get medium corners, medium straights, and up-tempo as various hints as well. Just wanted to make sure I have it. There's the debuff for tether. I don't think that's very relevant, but I wanted to make sure I was comprehensive in this, so I included this. All right, back to me. All right, gonna grab a drink of water real quick. Okay, so initial stats. Um, 25 to 35, bonus 10 for a higher LB. Very simple as that. The overall estimate for stat output, taking everything into account, initial stats and everything, the 0 LB, I think is where it really falls short due to that speed output, the speed bonus. After that, pretty much everything else is pretty darn close. 95%, 97%, 99% MLB is pretty much maximum. The only difference really is initial stats and a little bit more specialty priority, which is of course important, but not the end of the day. Okay, so for stat output, 1 LB plus is perfectly fine, but there's something really important, and it's that ceiling that I was talking about. This card has basically more SP than a lot of cards. You see it's +7 versus +3. Let's compare it with a lot of other cards first, okay? So output for speed, a 1 LB copy of Agnes Tachyon is going to be rather similar to pretty much every other SR card, except that she has scenario link and helps you out greatly with the scenario, so you probably run it at 1 LB over at least these three in the back. Sweep Tosho has additional value due to her +1 SP bonus, having that +2 skill points increase. Okay, but other than that, their trainings are pretty much similar. Her MLB, compared to the other cards of SSR, she is relatively on par with pretty much everyone, except for Marzensky, who has higher speed output. Basically, she is really, really good. She is at the level of a Biko Pegasus, at a Sakura Bakashino, with the bonus of basically having +2 SP bonus, which we'll talk about in a bit. And the thing to remember is that unlike Marzensky Speed, who does have more speed output, she has 80 specialty priority, which means she will be on that speed button more often, probably 2 to 3 times more due to the increase in specialty priority. Okay. The thing about this SP bonus and what makes her so powerful, first of all, the 1LB copy, if you have a bunch of other MLB SSR cards, it's just not going to cut it because I mean, you can, but the 1LB copy, it's 23. I guess you can. I suppose it's still fine at 1LB with the skill, but the skill point bonus is really what's putting it ahead of these cards. Here's why. Sorry for rambling. I've been rambling so much. There's just so much to talk about. When you're in a scenario and you need skill points, there's two ways of grabbing it: the race bonus and the SP bonus of your cards during training. The race bonus in Grand Live, because this is so hostile to racing, is pretty much gone. The only thing race bonus really does is increase your it increases your rewards for various different events in the scenario, which is useful, but most of your SP is going to be given from your trainings, which is where SP is so powerful. It's really hard to model this, but you can basically consider this just like any other bonus, like a speed bonus or a power bonus. Just the facility gains for Grand Live have basically 4 SP, except for Wit, which has 5 SP, which means a +1 SP bonus is 20% more SP from training when you're training with her, and +2 is 33% because, of course, it stacks and diminishing returns. It's 6/4, right? So it's a lot of skill points in absolute levels. You can see right here that the same solo training with Kidus in Black is only 3 skill points and is all the way up to 7, despite only having +2 skill point bonus because of the sheer amount of friendship bonus that's actually on the card. And this goes and it multiplies with every single like double and triple training that you have as well. And it adds up over time. My best estimate is probably around 120 bonus skill points that you're going to get from this card on a standard run. Like I said, you're training with it about 18 times roughly. If you're training with it 18 times, realistically it's closer to 26, because you're counting the ones that aren't friendship trainings. 26 times by 4 is 100, and you're probably multiplying that by the friendship bonus of other cards like double and triple trainings maybe 5 times in a run at most. So somewhere around the 100 to 140 skill point bonus is my personal estimate. And that's where you see the sort of SP targets people are talking about. 2800 to 3200 SP target is what you're generally going to see people say. And I think the bonuses is basically kind of completely determined by the skill point bonus that you're ending up running. And the fact of the matter is that this card has great trainings. Like I said, it's on par with the other SSR cards, and it has 2 SP bonus on top of it. So you're able to increase your ceiling higher without sacrificing any of your speed output. So taking that into consideration, I need to modify my sort of overall value analysis. Basically, 0 LB is down to 83%. I subtracted about 5 to 7% from each of these because that skill point bonus matters quite a bit. That is basically a full, like a half of a gold skill or a full white skill. And that's has value. 1 LB copy, 90%, 2 LB, 92%, 3 LB, 95%. MLB is, of course, MLB. And I think that at this point, 1 LB, 2 LB is completely usable, 100%, but there is certainly value for getting it MLB because that skill point bonus is going to increase your ceiling above the other players. So my final analysis in this, if you're coming back to here at the very end, there was a timestamp for it if you didn't want to see any of the math. Light Hello is a must use. You need an SSR copy of this, in my personal opinion, if you want to ease yourself a lot in Grand Life. You can technically use the R version, it's just going to hurt, okay? A 0 LB copy of Light Hello is going to be better and more comfy for you. So that is the most important thing for me to what I would grab first. After that, it's kind of based on your playstyle. First of all, there's a thing to consider on a double banner that at the very least you have the option, if you have very good cards for your various roles, like a Kidus in Black, let's say a Summer Marzensky, that you could borrow lock yourself, meaning that you go all in on one card and you lock the other one. The problem with this is that if there's a card later on down the line, especially for late surges with Daichi Ruby, and you don't get it, you're not going to be able to borrow it, which makes you behind everybody. And this is kind of a difficult scenario to borrow lock yourself for. So there's that consideration, is that if you believe in the strength of the rest of your cards and you have all the cards you need, you could go all in on one of these and get like a 0 LB copy of the other just for use in the occasional run where you don't want to borrow lock yourself. That's consideration number one. Realistically, I think it's a matter of what's your risk tolerance. If you want to be comfy, put more LB onto Light Hello. It makes your life a lot easier. I wouldn't probably do more than 2 LB. That training effectiveness does get it slightly more than the rest of it, but it is more energy the higher you go. Agnes Tachyon really wants to be MLB with that +2 skill point bonus, and if you have the option of getting this card MLB while still having a decent copy of Light Hello, I personally think there's an argument to MLB this card and then get a 0 LB copy of Light Hello. I think the stat and skill point increase of Agnes Tachyon, the skill point bonus, is rather effective. And I think if you're willing to high roll, as the scenario is a high roll one, I think that Tachyon speed at MLB is going to be very powerful this scenario. Take this with a grain of salt. I haven't played the scenario, remember that. But just on paper, it does seem that the ceiling is increased with Tachyon speed, and Light Hello at the end of the day is a must-use card because of her scenario link. But after that, it's a bunch of energy, which is, yes, very nice and does translate to stats, but so does skill point bonus. It translates to skills, which will help you on later on. So that is my personal thing that I will be kind of using. I will see, and honestly, there's so much RNG in the pull system, which we'll go over in a little bit, maybe on a future video, that you're not really going to have too much agency with this decision. But just know, MLB, Tachyon, very powerful. Light Hello is going to give you a lot more comfort. So I know this was long. I know this was rambly. Honestly, I'm on vacation right now, so I don't have my proper setup. I'm hunched over in a chair over a dresser trying to make this, so I've been rather exasperated. I've probably been breathing into the mic. It's not my main mic. A lot of things have basically made it very difficult for me to make this video, but I hope that at least for some of you, this has been some considerations that you can take into it that hopefully will help you out. I'm available for questions when things arrive. At the end of the day, take everyone's perspective into consideration. The traditional logic of 2LB, Light Hello, MLB Tachyon still kind of applies. It's just, I think there's a little more nuance to it. It's all based on risk tolerance. It honestly is. But I hope this has been helpful. It's not my most polished video in the world, but I do what I can when I'm in this situation. So take care, everyone. I'll try to make the Grand Life video a little more polished, but take care. Burb out. Where is it at?